Hello, children. Welcome for a second part of your history, chapter number 5. Name of the topic: Kingdoms, Kings, and an Early Republic. In our previous discussion of the chapter, boys, you have learned how some men became rulers and different burners. What are their works? Apart from that, about Janapadas, you have learned. Now, let us see page number 49, Mahajanapadas. About 2500 years ago, some Janapadas became more important than others and were known as Mahajanapadas. This is about 2500 years ago. There, some Janapadas, Jana means people or subject. So these Janapadas and Jana and Padas meaning which we have already discussed, they became important than others and they were known as Mahajanapadas. Some of these are shown on map 4. Most Mahajanapadas had a capital city. Many of these were fortified. Most of them, they had a capital city. And many of these were fortified. This means that huge walls of wood, brick or stone were built around them in order to protect themselves. Fortified means here. So this map, you see important Janapadas, Mahajanapadas and cities it has mentioned. Forts were probably built because people were afraid of attacks from the kings and needed protection. Boys, I think you have seen our Kangla fort also like that. These were built, probably means almost certainly, because people they are afraid their enemy will come and attack them. So in order to save themselves from other kings, they needed protection, and for this purpose, that means forts were used to build. It is also likely that some rulers wanted to show how rich and powerful they were by building really large, tall, and impressive walls around their cities. So it is also likely some rulers they want to show how powerful and how rich are they by building really large and high building impressive walls. Impressive means grand walls around their cities. Also, in this way, the land and the people living inside the fortified area could be controlled more easily by the king. And another reason is there. The land and the people who are living inside that fortified area, it could control more easily by the king, the ruler. He can control them in more easy way. Fortified means provide a place with defensive works as protection against attacker. Okay, against attack. Building such huge walls required a great deal of planning. This type of buildings, huge, this type of huge or high or big walls, it need what? It need a great deal of planning. Thousands, if not lakhs, of bricks or stones had to be prepared. Here in the picture, you can see the fortification wall at Kushambi. Okay, so there thousands, if not lakhs, of bricks or stones they had to prepare there in order to build such type of walls, huge walls. This in turn meant enormous labor provided possibly by thousands of men, women, and children. So it meant here very large in size. Okay, enormous means very large in size labor provided possibly by thousands of men, women, and children. And resources had to be found for all of this. So prepare all these resources had to be found. The new Rajas now began to maintaining armies. Soldiers were paid regular salaries and maintained by the king throughout the year. New Raja, now he started to do what? To maintain his armies. Soldiers, those persons, that means who used to guard the Rajas, they were paid regular wages, regular salaries, and maintained by the king the whole year. Some payments were probably made using punch mark coins. So in their payment, while payment is paying to them, some payments they were probably made using punch mark coins. You can see there, okay, in the illustration which is given in page number 84. Okay, punch mark coin means a type of early coinage of India, okay, which were used during those days. You will read more about these coins in chapter number 8. Taxes. As the rulers of the Mahajanapadas were building huge forts, maintaining big armies, they needed more resources. So to earn money in order to uh, spend for construction work of these huge forts and to maintain big armies, to give them salaries, they needed more resources. And they needed officials to collect this. So instead of depending on occasional gifts brought by people, as in the case of Raja of the Janapadas, they started collecting regular taxes. So in place of depending to that occasional gifts which were used to bring by the people for the king, as that means in case which we have found in the case of Raja of the Janapadas. Now in place of that, they started collecting regular taxes from the people. These taxes are taxes on crops were the most important. This was because most people were farmers. Usually the tax was fixed at one-sixth of what was produced. This was known as bhaga or a share. So in the first one we find taxes, which that means they fixed on crops. They are the most important. And it was so because most of the people they were belongs to farmers, and usually the tax it was fixed. That means whatever produce, that one-sixth part has to pays tax. This was known as bhaga or share, okay. There were taxes on crafts persons as well. This could have been in the form of labor. See, for crafts persons, for them also they need to pay taxes, and this could have been in the form of labor. As example, see here, for example, a weaver or a smith may have had to work for a day every month for the king. So, as a tax, that means their weaver or a smith, they had to work for a day for the king in every month. Herders were also expected to pay taxes. See, we find farmers. First one was about farmers. Then second one we find about weaver and smith. Now, see, herders, they were also supposed to pay taxes, okay, expected to pay taxes, and they have to pay taxes in the form of animals and animal produce. So, as a tax, they have to give animals or animals produced, the things which are produced by animals. There were also taxes on goods that were bought and sold through trade. So, from businessmen, from traders, taxes also collected from them, and then they also used to pay taxes for their trading or bringing or selling goods. Okay, and hunters and gatherers also had to provide forest produce to the Raja. Hunters and gatherers, they also need to do what? They also had to provide forest produce, whatever products that means they got from forest. So these hunters and gatherers, they need to give that products as tax to the Raja. So these are the different ways of collecting taxes from different persons. Changes in agriculture. There were two major changes in agriculture around this time. So around that time, two major changes took place in agriculture. One was the growing use of iron plowshares. Plowshares means the main cutting blade of a plough. This means that heavy clay soil could be turned over better than with a wooden plowshare, so that more grain could be produced. Here it means what? Heavy clay soil. It could be turned, it could be prepared over better than with a wooden plowshare, and in which more grain could be produced. Second changes. Let us see what is that. Second change it took place. People began transplanting paddy. They began to transplant paddy. This means that instead of scattering seeds on the ground, instead of throwing that means seeds in various random directions on the ground, from which plants would sprout, saplings were grown and then planted in the fields. So, there what happened in place of that? seeds their place, that means in a certain place where small plants used to grow, which is known as saplings, and after certain days that small plants used to transplanted in different places in the field. This led to increased production as many more plants survived. It led what? Production it increased by this method. However, it was back-breaking work. Generally, slave men and women who are known as dasas and dasis and landless agricultural laborers, karmakaras. Okay, karmakaras, landless means owing no land. They are poor people. Karmakaras had to do this work. So this work it need to do by these slave men and women and those poor people who do not have their land. A close look. Magadha. Find Magadha on map 4, which is given in page number 49. Magadha became the most important Mahajanapada in about 200 years. So it was the most important Mahajanapada in about 200 years. And Magadha, it is in Bihar at present, okay. Many, this one you will find that is in map 4 of page number 49. You can see here, but it is in present, that means it is in the state of Bihar. Many rivers such as the Ganga and Son flowed through Magadha. This was important for transport, water supplies, making the land fertile. So there many the important rivers, many rivers it flows there, okay, in which Ganga and Son flow through this Magadha, and these two rivers was important. It is because of through these people can transport, they send their goods, and they can bring their goods, water supplies for water supplies, and it makes the land fertile for growing crops. Parts of Magadha were forested. Elephants which lived in the forest could be captured and trained for the army. See, parts of Magadha were forested. Parts of Magadha, that means it was full of forest where different elephants were there, and these elephants which lived there in that forest, people could capture them and train for their army. Forests also provided wood for building houses, carts, and chariots. Forest of those places, it also provide wood for that means building their houses and making carts and chariots, etc. Besides, there were iron ore mines in the region that could be tapped to make strong tools and weapons. Apart from that, in that place, iron ore also mines that could be tapped to that were that means used to make strong tools and weapons. Magadha had two very powerful rulers. Magadha it had two very powerful rulers. They are Bimbisara and Ajatashattu. Come on, mark it. Okay, Ajatashattu and Bimbisara. These were, that means they were two very powerful rulers of Magadha who used all possible means to conquer other Janapadas. That's right. In all possible way in order to conquer other Janapadas. Mahapadma Nanda was another important ruler. He extended his control up to the northwest part of the subcontinent, and this Mahapadmananda, he extended his ruling up to the northwest part of the subcontinent. Rajagriha, present day Rajgir, it is in Bihar, was the capital of Magadha for several years. Okay, you mark this one also. What is the capital of Magadha? Rajagriha, okay. You must say Rajagriha. So this Rajagriha, present days, which is known as Rajgir in Bihar, it was the capital of Magadha for several years. Later, the capital was shifted to Pataliputra, present day Patna. So afterward, this capital, it was shifted, it was changed to Pataliputra. Pataliputra at present days is known as Patna. More than 2300 years ago, a ruler named Alexander, who lived in Macedonia in Europe, wanted to become a world conqueror. So more than 2300 years ago, Alexander, who used to lived in Macedonia in Europe, himself he wanted to become a world conqueror. Of course, he didn't conquer the world, but did conquer parts of Egypt and West Asia and came to the Indian subcontinent, reaching up to the banks of the Bees. So Alexander he reached after conquering uh, parts of Egypt and West in Asia. He reached to the Indian subcontinent up to the banks of Bees River. When he wanted to march further eastwards, his soldiers refused. So from this beach, as he wanted uh, to go forward, okay, to march forward further than that, further eastwards, there his soldiers they denied. They were scared as they had heard that the rulers of India had vast armies of foot soldiers, chariots, and elephants. They were scared. Scared means frightened. They were frightened of that as they heard what? The rulers of India they had big armies of foot soldiers, chariots, and elephants. A close look, Vajji. While Magadha became a powerful kingdom, Bhaji, with its capital at Vaishali, present as in Bihar, was under a different form of government known as Gana or Shangha. In a Gana or a Shangha, there were not one but many rulers. Many rulers were there. Sometimes, even when thousands of men ruled together, each one was known as a Raja. Sometimes you find there, even when thousands of men ruled together, each one was known as Raja. These Rajas performed rituals together. They also met in assemblies and decided what had to be done and how through discussion and debate. So they met In assemblies, they used to get together in assemblies and they decided what to do, what had to be done, and how it should be done through the discussion and debate among them. For example, if they were attacked by an enemy, they met to discuss what should be done to meet the threat. As example, if they attack, if they were attacked, if that means any other persons attack them by their means by their enemy, they meet to discuss what should be done for that threat. However, women dasas and kammakaras could not participate in these assemblies. However, there are also women dasas, kammakaras, they were not allowed in the assemblies. Both the Buddha and Mahavira, about whom you will read in chapter 6, belong to Ganas or Shanghas. Some of the most vivid descriptions of life in the Shanghas can be found in Buddhist books. That means some of that most different descriptions of life in the Shanghas, it can be found in Buddhist books. See here, this is an account of the Vajis from the Digha Nikaya, a famous Buddhist book, which contains some of the species of the Buddha. These were written down about 2300 years ago. See, you can see here, boys. Which was written about 2300 years ago. Ajatasattu and the Vajis. Ajatasattu wanted to attack the Vajis. He sent his minister named Vashakara to the Buddha to get his advice on the matter. The Buddha asked whether the Vajis met frequently in full assemblies. When he heard that they did, he replied that the Vajis would continue to prosper as long as they held full and frequent public assemblies. They met and acted together. They followed established rules. They respected, supported, and listened to elders. Baji women were not held by force or captured. Tatyas local shrines. Local shrines means boys holy place. Were maintained in both towns and villages. White saints who followed different beliefs were respected and allowed to enter and live the country freely. Rajas of powerful kingdoms tried to conquer the Shanghas. Rajas, that means those kings, those who were living in powerful kingdoms, they tried to overcome the Shanghas, to conquer the Shanghas. Nevertheless, this lasted for a very long time. Nevertheless means in spite of that, this lasted for a long time, till about 1500 years ago, when the last of the Ganas or Shanghas were conquered by the Gupta rulers, about whom you will read in chapter number 10. About these Gupta rulers, you will learn in your chapter number 10. Boys, the next page elsewhere given, so you just read it, okay? So here is the end of the chapter. Thank you all.